This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. For weeks now, you've heard about the huge chunks of ice jamming the Strait of Belle Isle and stopping the ferry from crossing.
Well, tonight we have some incredible footage to show you that was taken from a Coast Guard helicopter and the Icebreaker that's trying to smash open a path for both passengers and freight. Here Now's Meg Roberts was aboard the Icebreaker Henry Larsson yesterday. So Meg, is the ice really as bad as we've heard?
Well, let's just take a look at the back of the Henry Larsson. The ice in the strait can be more than a meter thick, but the issue here is that the ice is bottlenecked in the strait and the pressure creates these ridges that you see on your screen. Those ridges can swell up to 30 feet tall, so crews say it's like punching through a wall of ice. And that's why the Canadian Coast Guard, for the first time ever, has been moving freight to Labrador because the ferry can just no longer get through. Now, I know there was some criticism that the new ferry, the Kayak W, doesn't have the same horsepower as the old one, but the Coast Guard says that's not the issue. The Henry Larsson is barely getting through.
This is an exceptional year. It's the conditions that we've seen up there this year are not something we've seen in the recent past, and because of that, the ships are really struggling in the ice this year.
So Meg, when will people actually be able to get back on that ferry?
Well, it doesn't look like real soon. I sat next to MP Yvonne Jones on the helicopter ride to the Henry Larsson. She says 10 years ago there was no ferry service, so residents and stores would stock up on food for the winter. Now, they obviously don't do that relying on that ferry, so she said residents want to get that service back up and running. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard says it's prepared to help for the next couple of weeks.
There's no concrete end date to providing an escort to a ferry. It's all dependent on the temperatures that we experience, the winds that we experience, and you saw today the extent of the ice conditions up in the straits. It's going to take prolonged warm temperatures and prolonged favorable winds to improve that. So it's just a matter of taking the time to improve that. So it's a waiting game.
Now, coming up later in the show, I'm going to show you inside the command center of the ship, and you're going to meet the man leading that mission through the ice. But before that, Ashley's here to tell us what it will take to clear that ice out.
Yeah, Megan, as you just mentioned in some of those clips, it's temperature do play a factor. So what we need is these warmer temperatures to move in, and then strong northeasterlies, persistent northeasterlies to push that ice out of the way. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen in the next week or so at least. And looking at the ice forecast provided by Environment Canada, a monthly forecast that they put out, they're not saying that we're going to see any movement in that ice until at least the middle of April, which climatology-wise is when we start to see that ice move. So, you know, we are looking at the temperatures warming up, though, over the next couple of days for most of the island. So that's certainly good news for us on the island. But I'll have all of those details in your full forecast when I come back.
People with diabetes are calling on the province to make a change. They say that it will protect their health and save money. They want MCP to pay for insulin pumps for everyone in the province with type 1 diabetes and not just people under the age of 25. Mark Quinn reports.
An insulin pump like this has been keeping Maria Hibbs healthy for a decade. But with her 25th birthday just weeks away, she fears that could change.
It's scary. It's a scary thought because, like I said, my quality of life has really improved since I got the insulin pump.
Hibbs has type 1 diabetes. That means her body doesn't produce enough insulin to control her blood sugars. And if those blood sugars get too high, it can lead to problems. Problems like organ failure, blindness, comas, and even death. An insulin pump helps to prevent those.
There are a lot of complications with type 1 diabetes. So I think that in the long run, you're going to see less health issues and less of a burden on the healthcare system.
The alternative to an insulin pump is to inject insulin many times a day. Using needles is more likely to result in complications, but it is what some diabetics in this province are forced to turn to after they turn 25 and pump coverage ends.
At 25 years old, I mean, you're really just starting your life. So to have this bombshell dropped on you when you turn this age, I think is really unfortunate.
A pump costs more than $5,000, and supplies are a few $100s a month.
I'm pretty worried about it. I'm probably going to have to get a full-time job while I'm in school just to be able to cover the costs of all that.
Jake Manning says it shouldn't have to be this way. He says expanded coverage would actually reduce healthcare spending.
Short-term pain for the government to introduce a plan that, supplies pumps for everyone living with type 1 diabetes in our province. But you have to look at the long-term gain, so it's going to lead to less complications, which will then, lead to lower healthcare costs, and will then be, beneficial for everyone living in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Ontario and BC already cover the pump and supplies for all residents. A 2012 Diabetes Canada report says pump coverage for all residents would cut down on health complications and result in net savings. For this province, that could be a savings of $1.3 million over 20 years, above and beyond the costs of the program. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
And coming up later on Here and Now, health reporter Vic Adopia used to work here in Newfoundland. He's going to have more on new technologies for people who have type 1 diabetes. That's coming up in about 30 minutes.
Chantel John would have turned 29 today. In January, her murder shocked Conn River, and today, her cousin marked Chantel's birthday, the first without her. Here and Now's Katie Breen reports.
A red dress on a white hanger, careful not to let it drag. In other years, they would have been together. Now, a moment needed, alone.
Normally, I would be spending the whole week with her celebrating her birthday, and this is the first year that I haven't been able to, and it's just very hard.
Hoskins wasn't sure how to commemorate the day, just 2.5 months since her cousin was killed in Conn River. Even without Chantel, she knew she'd have to mark her birthday, and thought of this, the symbol of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada.
I just felt like it would help me get through the day, and just to have recognition that she was Indigenous and she got murdered.
John was allegedly killed by her ex-partner. He's now charged with first-degree murder in her death and attempted murder of another woman from Conn River from the same day as John. John's family says her ex was abusive, and they think more should be done in domestic abuse cases.
The police need to take things more seriously, and more awareness needs to be brought to things like this, like about domestic violence and just everything to keep people safe.
Hoskins says her cousin loved being outside and with her animals. Today, she was in the wind. The dress and her story hanging in Bannerman Park for people to stop and read. And Hoskins hopes they did.
I'm hoping that people are going to start thinking enough is enough and just try and end domestic violence in the best way they can.
Katie Breen, CBC News, St. John's.
3 men facing drug trafficking charges will know on Monday if those charges against them are going to be thrown out of court. Today in Supreme Court, lawyers defending Vince Leonard Jr., Wayne Johnson, and James Curran made an application to have the charges stayed because of the Jordan decision. Now, the Jordan decision requires that the Crown take a case to court within 30 months, and tomorrow is the 30-month mark since charges were laid. Justice David Hurley is going to decide on that application on Monday morning. The trio, who have ties to the Vikings motorcycle gang, are facing charges from Operation Bombard, which saw 12 people arrested.
Now, these people at the St. John's Convention Center this morning are all business owners from the downtown core. They got together for a summit to celebrate 30 years of their organization and to maybe figure out the next 30 years of economic life downtown. The CBC's Cease Hare reports.
These days in downtown St. John's, it's all uphill thanks to a downturn in the economy, along with an upswing in empty downtown office spaces.
It's like 30 years ago, you did things one way. 30 more years are coming. We've just got to figure out a way to keep on going, give people what they're looking for. You offer a good service, people will come.
Lynn Young and her husband own Celebrity Photo Studio, in business for 35 years, 22 of those at the corner of Duckworth and Prescott. In all that time, they've had to keep focus on the business through good and bad.
A lot of people get into business, thinking it's going to be easy, But, I guess they quickly realized that, it takes a lot of hard work in order to keep a business going.
Downtown St. John's represents downtown businesses. It's celebrating its 30th anniversary and organized today's summit. In the struggle for solutions to economic problems, it says the reality is sometimes some businesses simply don't make it. They run their course while others survive.
20 new businesses opened up last year. We probably had about 7 close. And when you think about that, that's a lot. And there's so many more coming. We have 2 new hotels. Look what JAG is doing down there with the Performance Center and expanding. The Hilton just across the street on the corner. There's so much more good happening downtown than bad.
Despite best efforts to sit around the table and come up with ideas to overcome challenges in the downtown, the harsh reality is that demand changes. The demand for the wagon wheel died a long time ago, and who knows what'll be in this building even 10 years from now. Cease here, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, if you're looking to go for a skate outside in St. John's, time is running out. The Loop in Bannerman Park is closing for the season this Friday. The city made the decision because of the recent bout of mild weather, plus more warm temperatures are expected later in the week. But it was a good run. The city says the Loop was open for a record 98 days of skating this year. It was closed for only 2 days since opening on December 20th. And if you're looking to have one last skate before Friday, the city suggests going out when the sunlight fades after 4 p.m. That's when ice conditions are best because, believe it or not, the midday sun is so strong it degrades the ice quality.
Well, today is the last day to let the government know if you want to get rid of plastic bags. The government started an online survey in early March. Environment Minister Graham Leto says he needs more public input before moving ahead. For years, the province has held back on outlawing the use of single-use checkout bags. Both Leto and Premier Dwight Ball say they favor a ban in principle. Meanwhile, jurisdictions around the world have already gotten rid of checkout bags. Well, in a related recycling story, it may not be officially sanctioned, but here's some good advice anyway. What you're seeing here is a parody Facebook page of the town of Glenwood. This isn't the town's official account, but it certainly looks real enough to get your attention. And it reminds residents the town cannot accept empty beer bottles as tax payments. Well, we checked with the town, by the way, and it's true, they don't do that, but they did have a chuckle over this parody as well. But in case you were wondering just how much beer you would have to drink to get the empties to cover the cost of your water bill, with your empties there, we offer the following public service. A dozen empties are worth $1.20, so let's do the math. In Glenwood, you'll see that the water tax is $432, so that's 360 cases of beer. Now in St. John's, the water bill, $605, so you'd need 505 dozen beer to cover that, kind of St. Paddy's Day weekend. Happy Valley Goose Bay, the rate is $535, so that's 446 cases. And in Deer Lake, $448 for water and sewer, which you'd obviously need if you drink all that beer. You're going to need 374 cases of beer. So there you go.
That's a lot
Which
of
reminds
beer.
me, Carolyn, I haven't paid my bill in St. John's, so I'll see you after break. Yeah.
Of course, in your testimony, it came out that there was a meeting in which Mr. Harrington, Paul Harrington, was mad at you, was bullying you, you said, and called you incompetent.
Well, it's only Wednesday, and already it's been a week of revelations at the Muskrat Falls Inquiry. After the weather, our reporter on the story sits down to talk about the latest testimony and what it all means.
Is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Bonus deadline is midnight, Friday, April 5th. Order now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Okay, got that tax bill paid. Time for the weather.
I did not know you were going to do
yeah,
that.
No, you're a good sport. You're a good sport.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, so it was a nice day
Yep.
today.
Sunny.
Chilly, but sunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a cute photo to share with you guys if you want to take a look at that.
Oh.
This is Finnegan and Harley in Blackhead. They're enjoying the beautiful sunshine.
That's nice.
Oh, they look like the best of friends.
They
So what's the
certainly
thought
do.
bubble there? Take the picture already.
Yeah. Mom, can we go for a walk?
Yeah, when's the walk happening,
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah,
Nice
exactly.
shot.
It is a beautiful shot. Thank you so much for sending that in. But, you know, temperatures were also quite chilly this morning. We mentioned that last night, that we're going to wake up to another cold morning. And if we take a look at those temperatures, sitting again up through the northern peninsula, minus 19 in St. Anthony, minus 7 was the overnight low in St. John's. And then through parts of central, we're sitting in the minus teens. And then temperatures this afternoon were quite cold. So these are below seasonal for this time of year. Up through Labrador, though, look, minus single digits today, and then similar temperatures through most of Newfoundland. Now, as I mentioned, they are below seasonal. Should be sitting around 0 or 1 degree for the most part. But because we didn't see a whole lot of cloud cover this afternoon, that's because we're sitting under a ridge of high pressure, and with that, these are those cooler temperatures. So we did see some cloud cover move in, especially for western portions of Labrador, and with that, some snow. But because we saw those clear skies, we've been talking about those ice conditions for the Strait of Belle Isle, and with those clear skies, we're seeing just all of that ice, and it's moving through. This motion is actually moving down towards the southeast. So as we head through the next couple of days, as I mentioned, we are looking at that southeasterly flow, or southwesterly flow rather, continuing, which is pushing all of that ice right through that area. But as we head through the night tonight, that snow that I mentioned for parts of Labrador is going to continue to track east towards Happy Valley Goose Bay, and then eventually the coast by the time tomorrow morning rolls around, and with that we're going to see snow. But for the island, nothing but clear skies, it looks like, through the overnight again, and because of that, those temperatures are going to stay quite cold. So sitting in the minus teens again for Grand Falls, Windsor, minus 16, likely going to see that a couple degrees lower again for lower lying areas. Minus 12 for Corner Brook. Winds will generally be around 15 kilometers per hour. And then out of the north for along the northeast coast, minus 9 should be your overnight low in St. John's. But again, clear skies for the most part. Up through Labrador, Labrador City is actually going to see that temperature climb to about minus 5 by tomorrow morning, with southwesterlies gusting upwards of about 40 kilometers per hour. These winds are going to strengthen as we head through the day tomorrow as well. Happy Valley Goose Bay looking at that potential for flurries by morning, and minus 11 towards the coast. We'll see that by morning. So here's a look at tomorrow's future tracker. Again, that ridge of high pressure dominating the island. So we're in that southwesterly flow or southerly flow, which means we're looking at warmer temperatures tomorrow, which is certainly good news. And then up through Labrador again, we're going to see that snow move through and continue towards the coast as we head towards the evening hours. So looking ahead at the forecast, it's not working. Yeah, it's not working there. Hopefully we're going to get someone to press that button for me.
I'm going to try.
All right, we've sent the rescue crew in
Just hit the space
help.
bar there.
I blame the ice, by the way.
No, it's not working.
Not working.
Overall, good thing I know what the forecast is going to be. So tomorrow we're looking at temperatures between 2 to 4 degrees for most of the island. And then up through Labrador, those temperatures are going to be sitting between 0 and 1 degree, again with that potential for some flurries. So hopefully I'll get this working and I'll give you the full forecast when I come back. Anthony?
An international engineering and construction management company shunted aside, bullied, according to one witness who says they were, quote, treated like slaves. Well, that's just some of what has emerged from the Muskrat Falls Inquiry this week. Also, a big shakeup at the Inquiry of the team there. You've been seeing them on Here and Now for months. Terry Roberts has led our coverage, which started last September, Terry?
Last September.
Wow, it's gone by. So let's start with the shakeup. What's up with that?
Well, lawyer Kate O'Brien, co-counsel at the Inquiry, well, now she's Justice Kate O'Brien. She's been appointed a judge at the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador. No real surprise there, Anthony. You know, she's a very impressive litigator. I would call her, you know, a superstar, really, from seeing her performance at the inquiry. We had this on Here and Now last night, and the Inquiry Commissioner, Richard LeBlanc, had this to say this morning.
As is to be expected, Justice O'Brien's appointment to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador means that the Commission is losing a key and important member of its team. She has made an enormous contribution to this Commission of Inquiry since its inception, and the Commission's loss will certainly be the gain of our system of justice in the province. I do not expect any delays or any sort of impact to the Commission, other than obviously we're losing somebody very important. But we will continue on, and I expect, again, we will continue to meet our mandate and also to conclude the inquiry on time.
So how's the inquiry going to just move on with this?
Well, Anthony, I think we can gather that they did know this was coming for a few days, because Richard LeBlanc, he announced this morning that lawyer Irene Muzichka, she's going to replace O'Brien. Now, she has a commerce degree from MUN. She has a law degree from UNB. She's been a longtime partner with the law firm Curtis Daw here. So, very experienced. And I can tell you, if she wasn't, Richard LeBlanc would not have brought her on board. So you can be sure she's very capable. So she's been hired full time here, but don't expect her to start questioning witnesses probably until after Easter. So as you heard the commissioner say there, he doesn't expect this to impact the work of the inquiry. Right. So what that means, I think, we'll he expects that we'll finish on time, which means we'll have public hearings up to August, and we'll have a final report by the end of this year.
Okay, quite the week, and it also rounded out with the testimony of somebody from SNC-Lavalin, a company that's been in the news across the country for other reasons. But let's tie SNC to this project. What happened there?
Well, yeah, SNC-Lavalin has quite a history with Muskrat Falls, and some of the testimony we heard this week from those witnesses was quite explosive. Now, we heard from Nalcor witnesses who testified that that SNC-Lavalin was performing very poorly on the project. Well, this week we had a chance to actually hear from SNC their rebuttal. Now, SNC-Lavalin, they were awarded a very important contract. It's called an EPCM contract, which means engineering, procurement, and construction management. So basically, they were the group that was supposed to go in there and finish this project and do the project. That was awarded in 2011. And the man who was supposed to take on that job, that effort, and lead the effort for SNC was Normand Béchard. 40 years in the hydro business, Anthony. He came there from Hydro-Quebec, where he just finished a project, finished at $300 million under budget and ahead of schedule. So he came here, thinking that he could do the same with Muskrat Falls. He says that didn't happen. Right away, he said he was micromanaged. Him and his whole team were micromanaged by the Nalcor project team, and that there was a lot of friction between the two groups. And he says there was turmoil from day one. And Béchard testified that the Nalcor team was very disrespectful and abusive to SNC personnel. He said some world-class construction and hydro experts with SNC were kicked off the project, and Nalcor replaced them with people with less experience. And at one point, Béchard wrote a letter to his boss at SNC and said that SNC personnel were being treated like slaves, and that he was considering leaving the project. So here's a moment after Béchard had read that letter into the record.
All right.
And I was telling there that I was thinking of taking back my word.
Is that a serious matter for you?
Oh, Jesus. This is my life.
Is that a true reflection of the way you felt on November 20th, 2012,
Oh.
what you just read?
This is my heart. I wrote that with my heart.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We don't often think of executives kind of showing that kind of emotion. Quite the week. What's your sense of what's next in the inquiry?
Yeah, well, today we were hearing from Derek Sturge. He's the Chief Financial Officer with Nalcor. We have another witness with SNC-Lavalin who's going to testify on Friday, but it's next week. I think we need to put a pin in that on Monday, because former Premiers Tom Marshall and Kathy Dunderdale
are back.
They're back to testify. This is all about Phase 2, of course. This is about construction and the cost overruns now for Muskrat Falls for a project that's now $5 billion over budget. and Anthony has yet to deliver a single kilowatt of electricity.
All right, Terry, I know the inquiry is going on and a lot more to come. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A bird's eye view. Up next, we'll take you back to the Strait of Belle Isle.
Reporter Meg Roberts brings you right to all of this ice that is clogging the ferry route between Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome back to Here Now. CBC NL has ventured to the Strait of Belle Isle to see just how much ice is globbed up there. We told you about that earlier in the show, and Here Now's Meg Roberts joins us once again to explain her adventure of landing on a ship in the middle of the strait. So Meg, what was that like?
Well, you know, at first I thought to myself, no way is this going to be possible. We're flying through some snow squalls and the visibility wasn't great. And I mean, the ship was actively cutting ice as we were nearing it. But like a pro, the pilot landed and the helicopter was secured to the ship. Also, let me tell you how cold it was standing in the middle of all that ice and wind. So we immediately went to what they call the bridge. That's at the front of the ship where all the commands are made. And it's also where you can find the commanding officer of the Henry Larsson.
To a running start here now, and you'll see once we run out of track, I'm going to put all speed on it, Mid-shift your wheel. Thank you. And we're moving ahead. So you can feel the vibration here. That's the ship now putting all force, moving us ahead. Actually, it's been probably some of the worst ice conditions I have experienced before in my career. And I know most people have the perception that, hey, you know, a icebreaker should be able to get through anything, but that's not the case. When you're butting heads with Mother Nature, Mother Nature's going to win. There's areas here that the Larsson has been trying to penetrate by backing and ramming. We recently did a couple cargo runs to Labrador, and on the second run there, I think there was one point we had to back and ram 13 times just to get through the ridge at the entrance to Blanc Bay.
So when he talks about backing up and ramming, there are 3 engines on the ship, which equals about 16,000 horsepower. So you can only imagine how tough that ice is to get through. We then had to make a quick exit because another helicopter that was tagging seals was trying to land. Now, I fully understand how lucky I am to have been able to experience this all. So I'll be back on the show after the next commercial to show you what it's like to get on a place like the Henry Larsson.
Pretty scared there now because she's one of these cats, right, that were born outside without human contact.
The feral cats of Gander.
Now they're getting some TLC from a group of residents who can't stand to see where they live and how they are living. That story's next. Poor thing.
Welcome back to Here and Now. We'll meet the feral cats of Gander and the woman who loves them. A school teacher from that town says she's taken on a second full-time job in a makeshift animal control operation. Here and Now's Garrett Berry explains.
So this is Nadia. Face her this way.
Meet Nadia, a black cat with striking green eyes and some new accommodations.
They need litter, food, water, warmth, anything a normal cat would have.
Wrapped in blankets and tinfoil for now.
There's 3 here spending a few days here while they recover from their surgeries.
They go to the vet, we get them checked, get them get them ear tipped, get their spay.
Welcome to feral cat rehab.
She's pretty scared there now because she's one of these cats, right, that were born outside without human contact.
In just a few days, Nadia will be back home, where Manning believes she's found a feral cat colony.
Based on the camera that we have outside, our outdoor motion sense camera, we've seen at least 10 cats.
So the teacher is taking action.
And when they get to this latch to reach the food, this front door closes.
It's called trap, neuter, and return. Proponents say that after the neutering, the cats should become much less aggressive, and they won't have to be euthanized. Manning is convinced.
I work Monday to Friday. When I get home in the evenings, usually I'm out. If I am trapping, I will spend 3 hours in the evening trapping. So I would say it's almost like working 2 full-time jobs.
These cats will go back to the wild. For the most part, they are too old to be domesticated. Manning says the procedures give them the best life possible.
So I think what I get out of it is the joy that I see on these cats' faces. I know it sounds silly, but when they're released back outside, it's just a sense of freedom for them.
With just a few volunteers and just a few donations, this cat lover says she'll keep doing her part to help. Garrett Berry, CBC News, Gander.
Some great people. In other news, type 1 diabetes affects about 300,000 Canadians, and most of them were diagnosed at a young age. And because the disease has no known cure, they're going to be dealing with it for life. Major problem here in this province where the illness is most prevalent. Well, thanks to new insulins and technologies, most type 1 diabetics live long lives, but the costs are enormous. Vicadopia reports.
It's one of the gadgets that keeps Courtney McLaren out of danger. A small pod under her shirt delivers the right amount of insulin which her body doesn't produce on its own.
You're coming down.
For type 1 diabetics like Courtney, regularly monitoring blood sugars ensures she doesn't get too much or too little insulin, which could have fatal consequences. But insulin, insulin delivery devices, glucose monitors, test strips, and all the connected supplies add up each month.
It was shocking when I added it up this morning, kind of sickening because, you know, between 800, let's say 860 as a conservative figure, that's a mortgage payment in New Glasgow, or that's a couple car payments.
Provincial insurance coverage has its limits, and it's often different for each province. Same with private insurance. Insulin pumps alone can cost as much as $9,000, leaving some people to ration or raise money.
There's something very, very wrong when you actually have to go out and fundraise for one of these amazing devices to manage blood sugar, thus not being such a drain on the healthcare system.
Those were the days.
When Paul Levine was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, most people didn't live past their 60s. Levine is 72, healthy, and a mentor to newly diagnosed young people.
A lot of them, don't have jobs where there is insurance coverage, and they see it as a real burden.
Add to that the worry about rising prices. In the last 4 years in the U.S., the cost of insulin has doubled. And even with the promise of pharmacare, diabetic devices and supplies still won't be covered.
To leave people to private markets and healthcare is a difficult thing to do because they really have no control and no ability to control the prices.
For now, Tammy McLaren says her family is managing the cost of Courtney's diabetes, but unless the system changes, her daughter will one day have to manage on her own. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
There's more bad news from that deadly cyclone in Mozambique. Cholera has now been confirmed in the disaster zone, and the country's health director warns the disease will spread. Already, as many as 1.8 million people are in desperate need of food, shelter, and clean water. The CBC's Nala Ayed is in Mozambique with the details on the efforts to help.
It's been extraordinary watching as the aid operation here at the Beira airport has grown by the day. There are people here from all around the world, and soon there will be more Canadians here on the ground as well. But even with all of this, aid organizations are saying that it's still not enough to deal with the urgent needs in this country. Yesterday we were speaking actually to the head of the WFP, the World Food Program, David Beasley, who said that even 2 weeks after the cyclone hit, they only have about 10% of the funding they need to deal with immediate needs. And that is, the biggest concerns are just getting food to people, to hundreds of thousands of people who are in need of food, but also water. Now, another major concern for authorities here is the matter of health and the possibility of the outbreak of disease. And in particular, they are worried about malaria and cholera. In fact, today, the authorities here, the local ones, confirmed that there have been 5 cases of cholera so far, but they're also dealing with about 2,700 cases of people who are showing symptoms that could well be those of cholera. Also, so the World Health Organization is providing a treatment unit. It will also provide some vaccinations, hundreds of thousands of vaccinations, but they are still concerned. Adding to their concern is the fact that the Beta Hospital and several health centers in this city were damaged in the cyclone, so that is an added issue as well. And given all of that, the Canadian Red Cross has deployed a field hospital to actually augment those kinds of services here. 25 Canadians will be on the ground to lend a hand, doctors, nurses, and technicians who could treat up to 30,000 people here to try to avert the worst case scenario. Nalayed, CBC News, Beta Airport, Mozambique.
Back in this country now, the victim of a violent abduction near Toronto has been found safe. And now police are looking to find 4 suspects, and they say they have some excellent quality video of them.
I can tell you they will be found. It's just a matter of time. They need to seek legal counsel and turn themselves in.
Wanjun Liu, a student from China, was grabbed from a parking garage in Markham on Saturday, and then he turned up last night near Gravenhurst. That's about 115 kilometers away. The person who found Liu said he was very shaken up. His glasses were gone, his jeans torn up, and he's been treated for minor injuries in hospital. Investigators hope that Liu can tell them what happened during his abduction, and they've arrested one man that they believe was involved, but police say they had to release him because there wasn't enough evidence to support a charge.
For me personally, if you weren't a little bit nervous, there'd be something wrong.
A mountain climber from St. John's has been training for months and is just days away from heading to Nepal to try and make it to the top of Mount Everest.
Wow, we'll hear Mark Ballard's story tomorrow night on Here and Now. Not a bad evening unfolding in downtown St. John's and the entire city tonight, actually.
Yeah, quite pretty. When we come back, Ashley will fill us in on how it's looking for the rest of the province and what else is in store.
Is brought to you by 811 Healthline. Medical advice, health information, mental health, and healthy eating. Dial 811. It's free and confidential.
Welcome back.
Yeah, and just before we get to the weather, I want to show you this video that was sent in from David Wilcox. He posted this on my Facebook page.
Aw, so cute. A Newfoundland pine marten, once an endangered species. The animal is now considered threatened in Newfoundland, and threatened is not quite as serious as endangered.
Yeah, we need that narrator.
The pine marten is a shy weasel-like mammal found throughout Canada. It prefers coniferous and mixed-wood forests and has traditionally been prized by trappers for its high-value fur.
Which it's about to show off for you, too. It's cute, isn't it?
It is super cute.
Yeah.
What is he doing?
Trying
It's
to
like
get
a circus, a little circus act I think he's going to do.
This is where he's going to get interesting and show off his gymnast. It's like Ashley climbing the rope is what it is. Let's see, was he going to make it? Come on. The director's cueing you. Be cute now. There you go. Over the rope.
Except I didn't
once.
get that far.
There you go. Similar fall, though.
It was similar fall, yeah, absolutely. Oh, so cute. It was nice to see that video.
Yeah.
So you also chose a winner for the sweat?
I did.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I posted on there already, but Kelly Clark was the winner.
Congratulations,
so she
Kelly.
won the cap, and so I got a hold of you, hopefully on Facebook, and then we'll get the information and I'll send that to you. So congratulations.
Well done.
All right, so now it's the long range forecast time, but you're going to have a look at tomorrow because we had those technical difficulties earlier.
A little bit, yeah. So we'll just go through a brief, quick.
Can you do this weather forecast while you're drinking a glass of water? Because last time you did it with no numbers, which was really impressive. So we're going to try and up the challenge a bit. You know, like a ventriloquist.
And then pat your head and rub your belly at the same time, too.
Well, that's the good thing about being a meteorologist and actually doing the forecast. I know what it is, so I don't necessarily need my graphics. But here's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We're sitting between 2 to 4 degrees for the most part through areas inland. Along the coast, it'll be a little bit cooler. But plenty of sunshine, but those south winds still upwards about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, a little stronger for the west coast, 30 to 50. And then that's the story up through Labrador as well, as we start to see that snow spread towards the coast into the afternoon. But again, those temperatures will be sitting between 1 and 3 degrees as your afternoon highs through the day tomorrow. Now, looking ahead to Friday, that system still very much in play up through Labrador. We're going to start to see some more cloud cover head towards Newfoundland through the afternoon on Friday. And with that, we'll start to see some precipitation, likely starting as snow and then quickly changing over to rain through the afternoon on Saturday with some clearing skies up through Labrador. So here's a look at your forecast. Those temperatures quite cold up through Lab City. So we're going to see them drop to about -11 with that potential for snow, -3 for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and then along the coast still holding on to those temperatures in the single digits. Down through most of Newfoundland, those temperatures are going to be climbing, and they're going to continue to do so as we head towards the weekend. Between 4 and 6 degrees, again, seeing things start off as snow, changing over to rain quite quickly, but then holding on to that sunshine for at least the Burin Peninsula, and it looks like the Avalon Peninsula as well. So here's a look at Saturday morning. We'll see that rain move through. Quick break in behind on Saturday afternoon. Change again, we're going to see that next system roll in, mainly snow up through Labrador and then mainly rain into Sunday morning for most of Newfoundland. And then it hangs around for a little while with another push of warm air moving in on Monday with that potential for some showers. And then again, staying in those cooler temperatures up through Labrador. So with this, we could see some accumulating snow as well. So here's a look at the 5-day forecast for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. We're looking at 2 degrees tomorrow, so plenty of sunshine. 5 by Friday, those winds will pick up. And then Saturday is when we're looking at that rain. And then generally hanging on to these warm temperatures between 6 to maybe even 10 degrees by Monday. And then a mix of sun and cloud moving in on Sunday, rather. Monday looks generally gray. Central Newfoundland, 4 degrees tomorrow. So as we get inland, that's when we start to see those warmer temperatures. Snow changing to rain on Friday. And then generally a mix of sun and cloud through Saturday and Sunday with that potential for a few showers. Look at those temperatures on Sunday, 11 degrees. And then for western Newfoundland, same thing. Not quite as warm. Those should be sitting, though, about 8 degrees above zero for Sunday, with either rain or snow into Monday night, it looks like. Up through Labrador, we're looking at 3 degrees tomorrow, then generally sitting in the minus single digits with that potential for flurries right through Monday, and then much of the same for Western Labrador, except dipping well below seasonal for Friday, and then back to the mid-single digits for the rest of the weekend. So let's look at your forecast. I'll have your weather photo coming up. Anthony?
Well, thanks, Ashley. With those kinds of temperatures, you can kind of understand the loop, of course, melting here in St. John's, going to close sooner than some people would like, but the ice definitely not melting in the Strait of Belle Isle. Here now's Meg Roberts has been sharing her journey with us tonight. She headed off to the Henry Larsson, that icebreaker, busy slicing through the frozen Strait of Belle Isle. And we showed you the thick ice blocking ships crossing from Newfoundland to Labrador. So Meg joins us once again. So Meg, you didn't exactly do a whole lot of standing on solid ground yesterday, did you?
No, not at all. And I kept thinking the whole time, wow, people actually do this for a living. At about 8 in the morning, we got into these bright orange suits. They're mandatory if you're crossing a certain amount of water. In the suit pockets is a location device and a flashlight. And I have to say, they are extremely uncomfortable. It's about a 3-hour ride from St. John's Airport, where we left, to the Strait of Belle Isle, but we did have to make some stops, and the pilot said the helicopter, which holds up to 15 passengers, is a gas guzzler. So we stopped on this very small remote cement pad in Twillingate to refuel. We also stopped to pick up a few local politicians along the way. Now, about a half hour from Twillingate going in the direction of the Strait is when the blue open water starts to turn white. From the helicopter above the water, I was thinking, this doesn't look like much, it just looks like ice. And it's really not until you get off the helicopter and you're standing eye level with it, do you realize how serious this is. Now, I haven't had a whole lot of experience flying in a helicopter. My dad was the operations manager at an airport, so I used to go to all these air shows and was fascinated with aircrafts in general, but you don't realize how loud a helicopter is until you're in one. I also, I've never been so conscious of wind before. You can actually feel yourself kind of bobbing and being carried with the wind, almost as if you were a butterfly or something. So, as you can imagine, such a phenomenal experience. And although I'm sure I don't need to tell you guys, the pictures probably speak for themselves.
Yeah, they certainly do. Although I got to say, I don't know about you, Carol, I'm kind of envious.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's quite the journey. Very few people get to see what Meg got to see. And
so true.
Delighted that she could actually share all of that with you watching here and now. But I have to confess, a little bit of envy as well. So anyway, well done, Meg. In other stories now, 3 researchers who found a way to get computers to learn like humans by imitating the human brain, well, they are the winners of this year's top International Computer Science Award. 2 of the 3 winners of the prestigious Turing Award are Canadians. Yoshua Bengio from Montreal and Jeffrey Hinton from Toronto are the winners. Hinton started working on artificial intelligence, or AI as it's called, 40 years ago, and he says his work has applications for every aspect of living.
Anytime you have data and you want to predict things, you show the computer examples of the historical data and what happened next, and the computer can figure out the regularities and can start making predictions. So, for example, it can predict floods, it can predict aftershocks of earthquakes. It can even look at an image of the back of your eye, and by seeing the blood vessels in your retina, it can predict whether you're going to have a heart attack.
Well, Hinton warns that researchers and users of new artificial intelligence technology must take care to prevent the possible misuse of this advanced work. He says discoveries like his will ultimately cost many jobs, but he also says it will enhance many other jobs.
Well, here's a look at your weather photo of the day.
Vegas?
Yeah, I know, it looks awesome. Yeah, did you see the sunset yesterday? Just
yes,
by any chance?
It was beautiful.
Yeah, so this was the sunrise. So just as beautiful.
All right. And who owns the laser beams?
Some car does.
Nice picture.
It is a great picture. I'll tell you where this was taken and who took it when we come back.
Welcome back. Well, Saskatchewan now has bragging rights to something really, really big.
Meet Scotty, now officially the world's biggest Tyrannosaurus rex. Scientists confirmed that record this week after deciding that it was in fact bigger than Chicago's famed T-Rex, known as T-Rex Sue.
Scotty has Scotty has delighted scientists since his discovery in 1991. 65% of his 13-meter-long skeleton was intact.
And scientists deduced that he weighed nearly 9,000 kilos. What's that? 20,000 pounds. His full skeleton will be displayed more prominently once the museum gets its renovations done. It's quite the beast.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Sure that will draw lots of tourists. And,
Breaking news. If you're a dinosaur, what's a couple thousand years?
That's right. All right, so this is a great viewer photo.
Yes, it is.
Fancy schmancy.
Fancy shot there.
That is coming from Cape Spear heading to St. John's?
No.
Oh.
Portugal.
Portugal Cove
called
Road?
St. Phillips.
Oh.
Yeah. That's where it was taken. Well, at least that's what it said it was taken.
Right.
But yeah, beautiful shot there. Thank you so much, Aubrey, for sending that sunrise over the city.
Yep. Aubrey Daw. Oh, okay. We've actually had him on the show from Beachy Cove Elementary. I'm assuming it's the same Aubrey Daw. He's the principal there.
Oh.
Yes.
Showing off again.
Great photographer.
Yep. That's
Very
him. Nice shot.
Yeah.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, see ya. Gotta go get
Good
some
night,
empties,
everyone.
pay the bills.
Good night.
See ya.